the BMI value. So what they did is basically provided students with that survey, principals with that surveys, and they asked the principals if the students allowed to eat foods and beverages in off-lunch hours, for example, in school hallways or in classrooms. And also they asked if the students are offered a food as a reward during class or in the classroom. So by measuring this survey, and also by measuring the BMI value of students in 16 schools, their study revealed that increasing the opportunity to students to eat in classrooms and in hallways will significantly increase the consumption of competitive food. And that also will lead to increase the calories intake and lower a nutrient intake of each student. And this results were really actually shocking to me because as you can see, for every additional food practice that's allowed in school, there will be an increase in the BMI value by 10%. So now we know how important the school regulations and school environment in controlling obesity and affecting nutritional status of our students. So in light of those evidence, the nutrition program in schools were established. There are two types of nutrition programs. Firstly, we have the school breakfast program and the school lunch program. And in Kuwait here, we have mostly the breakfast program that available to our students. However, kindergarten students are provided with two meals, a breakfast meal and a snack meal as well. According to the American Dietetic Association, the nutrition program is a guaranteed level of performance that assures students are provided with foods and beverages for children that are considered or consistent with the dietary guidelines of each country. So each country have to have the specific dietary guidelines, and then food provided to the students have to be equivalent to those guidelines. Also, they emphasized on the importance of a couple of specific hours of nutritional education, also as well as a physical education. And in order to have a specific program, for example, a nutrition program, there was an act that basically controls the nutritional content of those foods. So each meal during breakfast should not contain more than 30% calories obtained from fats, no more than 10% energy driven from from saturated fatty acids. The meal should not contain trans fatty acids. Also, the meal should provide 1/3 of the recommended daily allowance of calcium, vitamin A, and vitamin C. And most importantly, they have a specific 5 years plan that controls the sodium intake of meals provided to those students, and trying and aiming to reduce sodium intake. It's really important to know that those standards are subjected to changes according to any changes in nutritional status of school-age students. And also, as you can see from that table, it's also belong to the Nutritional Acts in the United States. It shows that each student should be provided with 1 portion of fruits, 1.5 to 2 portions of whole grain bread, and 1 portion or 1 serving of milk. And as you can see, the portion size of those meals are subjected to changes according to the age group. So, since the school breakfast control the nutrient intake and also control the energy intake in each meal, studies have aimed to measure the effect of school practices, or a school breakfast program in trying to reduce weight. Unfortunately, the literature lacks the evidence that if the students are able to join the school breakfast program, they will lose weight. Or we can't use the school breakfast program as an intervention for weight loss. However, what cross-sectional studies aimed is to measuring the BMI value of the students participating in the breakfast program and students who are not participating in the breakfast program. And basically, they found out the students who participate in the breakfast program are expected to be leaner than other students who did not participate in such program. Also, they found that the BMI value difference was 0.7 lower in students who participate in such a program. And to translate this 0.75 BMI point is translated to 1.5 kilogram for a child with 152 centimeters. Also, this intervention proves that students who participate in the breakfast program or the lunch program consume less amount of competitive food. And as we all know that the competitive food are the main contributor in weight gain, reducing it might help with controlling obesity. Also, the study proves the increase of milk consumption amongst those students. So how can we measure or how can we evaluate those nutritional programs that we have in Kuwait? Firstly, unfortunately, in Kuwait, we don't have a specific intervention that measures how effective that school program that we have here in Kuwait. And also, I think it's been more than 3 years now since the nutrition program was implemented, and there is no any statistics that proves that students or the nutrition breakfast program is helpful in changing the nutritional status or helping in reducing weight. So what has to be done here is firstly to measure the nutritional value of the current meals provided to our students. And secondly, we have to measure the nutritional status of our students and trying to aim and find if those meals currently provided are satisfying to 1/3 of our students' requirement. By doing that, we can issue regulations that will help us in providing a nutritional standards for meals that are provided for our students here in Kuwait. Most importantly, we have to focus on finding a follow-up studies on finding the effectiveness of those changes and standards and trying to continuously improving them. Also, we have to, I would like to say the word harsh regulation, and we have to implement hard regulations over competitive food, because as the literature now proves that competitive food are the main problem in our students' diet. And finally, we have to try to implement some regulation, and as Dr. Intisar said today earlier, that some regulations have to be done in private schools as well, because a huge number of population of our students are now basically are going to public school rather than, going to private school rather than public school. So trying to find implications to control those policies is really important as well. So in conclusion, the intervention outcome that are going against competitive food and their effects in increasing BMI value are really encouraging us to try to issue regulations against their availability in Kuwait. And also, the school breakfast program significantly helpful in weight loss reduction. However, a more follow-up is needed to confirm those evidence. And finally, it's really important not to forget the effect of nutritional education as well as physical education in preventing weight gain and to control the nutritional status of our students. Thank you, and let's keep our kids safe and healthy.
Thank you, Anwar. We'll get the questions later, please. Now it's time for Shireen Mtawwa, and she's a dietitian working at the Central Medical Nutrition Clinic at the Food and Nutrition Administration since about 12 years, or even it is written over 12 years. Shireen have received her bachelor from the Smith College at the United States, and now she is currently carrying out a research for her master's degree in diabetes care and education from the University of Dundee. Now she will talk to us about the motivational interventions technique.
Thank you, Dr. Muna, for the introduction. I'd like to thank our speakers today. Dr. Nawal, are you laughing at the picture? The lion is symbolic of our change of fear, so we need to embrace our fears and start to change. Okay, so yes, I was very happy that Dr. Susanna, Dr. Susan, and Dr. Declan Field all touched upon the importance of behavioral change. So motivational interviewing was developed by William Miller, Stefan Rolnick, and is commonly used in the treatment of addiction. 50% of obese patients have some sort of emotional eating, which is a form of addiction. So what is motivational interviewing? It's an evidence-based treatment that is one of the best available to address ambivalence to change. It helps people express in their own words their desire for change. So we need to be encouraging patients to give us the solutions instead of us prescribing it to the patients. The meta-analysis in 2011, the International Association for the Study of Obesity looked at motivational interviewing in overweight or obese adults and its effect on the standardized mean difference for change in BMI or body weight. The result was that motivational interviewing was associated with a greater reduction in body mass compared to controls. So it's a very effective way of getting people to change their behavior. Another meta-analysis showed that motivational interviewing outperforms traditional advice giving in 80% of studies. It's effective in 10 to 20 minutes duration time spent with a patient, and more encounters over longer time periods increases the likelihood of an effect. The healthcare providers can be as effective as psychologists or counselors when they're using the motivational interviewing technique. It's fun and it's less demanding than just telling the patients what to do. So what is motivational interviewing? It's a patient-centered counseling method for addressing the common problems of ambivalence about change, because a lot of the patients are stuck in ambivalence where they're not sure if they should take the next step to make the change. And patient-centered means a shared decision with the patient. So there was a study done by NHS where they interviewed patients and found out that 90% are wholly in favor of a shared decision making with their healthcare provider or dietitian. So what does shared decisions involve? Basically, when you're coming up with the SMART goals with your patients, you need to bring your expertise to the table. So it's 50% the provider, and the patient gives you 50% by showing you insights into their day-to-day life, their wants, their needs, their readiness for change, and they come up with an agreement that the patient is happy to go forward with. Ambivalence to change. So ambivalence is when patients are hesitant. So they're not sure if they do want to exercise or not, take the medication or not. So this is where most patients are at the moment when they come through your door, 85% of them anyway. This is the stages of behavioral change that Dr. Susan was talking about. I like this model because it shows and it emphasizes that relapse is a natural part of the cycle. So as you can see, it starts with pre-contemplation. Pre-contemplation is when the patient is not aware that they need to make a change. So if he has high blood pressure and doesn't know that he needs to reduce salt, then he's probably in pre-contemplation. When you do explain that to him and he's aware, then he can move to contemplation, where he knows what he has to do, but he has to weigh the pros and cons of whether to move ahead and make a decision to take the next step and make the change. If they do decide to make the change, then they're in action stage. And more often than not, when they are in action stage, then they do relapse. They might start with the behavior, but then they'll relapse and maybe discontinue and go back to stage 1 in contemplation. And then if they do maintain the behavior change, they do reach maintenance stage. And if they maintain the behavior, let's say exercise, for 6 months, they reach the optimal recovery where it becomes a consolidated change and it's part of their lifestyle. Or they might relapse and start over again. But what I would like all of you to be aware of is that the same patient can be at different stages for different goals or behaviors. They might reach optimal recovery in exercise. They might be going to the gym on a daily basis, but might be at pre-contemplation because they have high blood pressure and they're not aware that they have to reduce the salt intake. What stage of behavior change is this guy at? He knows from a study that 38% of Americans are obese. He's probably American. And he says, I don't see a problem when he stands on the scale. Any volunteers? No? Yeah? Pre-contemplation? Yes, okay. So you need to be setting SMART goals. The goals need to be specific, measurable, achievable, and realistic and time-bound. But they all have to be agreed upon by the patient. We need to explore with the patient their reasons for change. Why do they want to change? Why is it important for them to make those changes? We also need to explore extensively their readiness to change so we can assess at which stage of behavioral change they're at for that behavior, and so we can help them move along. I won't spend so much time on this because Dr. Susan had the same slide, but basically I use this with all my patients on a day-to-day basis, and we assess their readiness to change, and it does help patients come up with their own reasons how they would move from like thinking about change to maybe being ready to start the change. Always motivate and cheer on any behavioral changes, even if they're small ones, because the patient, it's a normal part to relapse, and it's normal that they're hesitant to move forward. So any attempts to change is always celebrated. So why do you use motivational interviewing? Because 85% of all patients are not ready for behavioral change, and they have not reached the action stage yet. They're either in pre-contemplation or contemplation when they reach your office. This is a neat tool that I like to use. It's called decisional balance sheet. Basically, they can write the advantages and disadvantages of making the change and the advantages and disadvantages of not making that change. So it just makes it clear to them whether they want to move forward or not with a change. And basically, this just shows it in a diagram form. So reflective practitioners. Motivational interviewing is a skill that is refined by practice. So the more you practice those skills, the better you get at it. And we should get used to thinking about our sessions with our patients. So when you are with your patients, I encourage you to think about how you managed that patient, and did you use motivational interviewing, and what did you do well, what didn't go so well, so that you can improve upon it in the future. There are 5 basic motivational interviewing techniques: the expressing empathy, developing discrepancies, avoiding arguments, supporting self-efficacy, and rolling with resistance. So expressing empathy was already covered by Dr. Declan, But it's very important because a lot of people, they misunderstand empathy with sympathy and they mix them up. But empathy is putting yourself in the patient's shoes and you feel or you mirror back their emotions. So for example, if they're happy with their achievements, then you can say, you know, I understand you're happy about the effort you put, and you have every reason to be happy about it. Definition of empathy is the understanding of and identification with another person's emotional state. I'll just skip that. Okay, developing discrepancies. Basically, when you understand what the patient wants, his goals, and you know the current behavior, then you can just start the conversation by telling them, you know, I know that it's very important to you to lose weight, but yet you're currently having 3 extra large burgers a day. How do you think you can change that situation? And just listen. Use active listening with your patients, and more often than not, they'll come up with answers, and they probably know a lot more than you think they do. Avoiding arguments. Resist the temptation to argue with the patient's unwillingness to change. It's their decision. So even if a patient comes to a dietitian and says, eat less and exercise more, that's the most ridiculous fad diet I've ever heard of yet, still resist arguing with your patients. Okay, supporting self-efficacy. You can. Elicit support, hope, and optimism for the client's possibility of successful change in behavior. Just telling them that you can is self-efficacy, and it's very helpful. I'll share a story of mine last night when I was practicing for this presentation. And as you can probably see, I'm very scared. And my daughter heard me and she said, Mom, you're amazing. And that was self-efficacy, and it helped a lot. So there's the lion again. And then rolling with resistance. We can detect resistance if we hear our patient saying yes, but. So if they say, yes, you know, we want to exercise, but we don't have time, or it's too hot, it's too dusty, whatever, whenever you hear the word but, it's a resistance. So never go into conflict with patients. Always just reflect back what they've said to you. So, okay, you can say, okay, so you have no time to exercise, that's okay, let's look at your schedule and see how we can maybe find time. Another example is maybe a patient coming to you saying, I've done everything, I hardly eat, but yet my weight is not going down. So you can say, oh, so you hardly eat a thing. Let's look at your 24-hour recall, or let's look at what you've been eating for the last 2 weeks and try to see what changes we can make. Using motivational interviewing will reduce sadness and build motivation. A lot of the patients, when they come to you, they're very sad, you're the last resort, and motivational interviewing is not hard on the patient. And so try to use motivational interviewing as much as you can. In conclusion, motivational interviewing is like showing the person the way, but only if they want to go there. So if they want the healthy lifestyle, we can tell them it's the next exit to the right, but we can't force them to go there unless they're ready. And if anyone's interested in motivational interviewing, there's Well Coaches School. It's an online course. And thank you. And together we can reverse obesity.
Thank you. Wait, Shireen, come back, please, for the questions. And all speakers, please, back to the stage. Any question, any comment? Yes, we have a question in the front, please. The microphone, please, here.
So the ladies are allowed to sit, but Declan, it's time that he stopped being so sedentary, you see. Now, who wants to ask questions?
Yeah, I have
Yes.
two questions, or one question, one inquiry. First one, I was just to clarify I think both Susan and Dylan mentioned about this, if you lose 5 to 10% of your weight, you reduce the risk. But is that you're talking about a certain time? Because if you reduce from obesity grades class 2 to 1, still you are obese and still you're in high risk. So I was not clarified from this, and I'll ask the other.
Hang on, we have got away.
Even if you still
No, hang on.
you have reduced your risks dramatically. Small weight losses, no matter where you start, still count and still get the majority of people off of medication. So that's really, really important. People think, oh, unless I get back to a healthy weight or a weight that I used to be many years ago, it doesn't count, but it does. Every bit of weight loss counts, no matter where you start.
Thank you. The second question is more related to school, food. I agree with you. There is no audit. Actually, it's what's happening to the food and what's the result. But I can tell you from our observation in the clinic, I don't think it's working well. Because one, it's have a lot of sugar and juice. Second, the children, they are not eating the school, box. And thirdly, they're using the canteen. And fourthly, they are not implemented in the intermediate school, children, where we see a lot of high obesity. So I think the school, lunchbox that need to be revised, and audit have to be submitted, and to see the result of that.
Yeah, to be honest, when I started actually researching for this topic, I went to a couple of, people who are in charge in the Ministry of Education, and I couldn't find any standards that will, that controls, or basically nutritional standards about, it controls the nutritional contents of the meal provided to students. And since also we don't have a specific dietary guidelines as well, how can we put a nutritional standards before knowing what are the dietary guidelines to our students as well? So that's a second agreement to what you just said. That's it.
Yeah, sorry. I think we can start from now, from today, because I hear there will be some changes in the future. So if we start from today, so we can have a data at least 3 months before so they can see the effect of their changes.
Yeah, that's true.
Yes, please, Dr. Nawal, she has a comment on that point.
Okay, I just wanted to say, with regard to the school meals, we are involved with the Ministry of Education and have been involved for the last 4 or 5 years. And what we did was we calculated 20 to 25% of the total calories and what the requirements are for the school children from 6 to 11, and that's the elementary schools. And we urged the Ministry of Education to have proper monitoring and evaluation, and we were ready as a Ministry of Health Nutrition Department to help them with that. That didn't work. That didn't work. And we are revising, we did revise it. We put a new set of, not regulations, but, because to make it tempting for the children to eat that school meal, and we asked them, for example, to close the canteen. Canteen is not a prepared meal, it's just selling food items. So we tried our best to make that school meal meeting the 25% of the calories and the requirements of the children with the data that we have, canteens to be closed, and to involve the administration